I Hate the News is the weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. It's April 21st, 2026. Montgomery County Council President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez offers an alternative budget proposal to County Executive Mark Elrich. No across-the-board tax hikes, but also cuts to spending, including reneging on negotiated cost of living increases for teachers, staff, and county employees. Montgomery County Public Schools proposes to start the next school year 5 days earlier than usual, but the calendar does not include potential snow closure days in the spring of 2027 when they might be needed, and which turned out to be a problem this year in 2026. We have data as best as it is available on local ICE arrests, and Maryland Senator Brian Feldman, chair of the Education, Environment, and Energy Committee in the state Senate, on coming changes to solar net metering, which allows rooftop solar owners to sell back excess generation to the grid. The full interview will follow in a later episode. Stay with us.
What's the matter? You seem so surprised. Glancing in the morning paper tonight. Seems that the French can capitalize. No, the execution of the spy. During General didn't die. Watch his family cry. Watch his family cry.
I Hate Politics is a podcast about our neighborhoods, workplaces, schools and streets, and our local governments as they function in diverse and democratic societies. This means our politics are messy, dirty, sometimes corrupt, with often self-serving politicians. But no matter how much we may hate politics, we are never exempt from it, even when we refuse to participate. In fact, the purpose of politics is to keep society functioning precisely when we don't agree with each other, like now. Music for this episode comes from Silver Spring rock musician J.D. Brayton, who goes by the stage name Mr. Tree Frog. The two songs we play in this episode are Halo and Troubled Sleep. You can find his music on Bandcamp.
Chicks are barking for a nuclear call. Nairobi got hungry, so they started a war. Famous senators face the law. Babylon discovered she was a hoe with a halo. A hoe with a halo. A hoe with a halo. Everybody by your head. Everybody by your head. Everybody by your head.
5 weeks ago, on March 13th, Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich proposed his 2026-27 budget with key tax and user fee increases, which are excerpted from his full speech.
It's a 6.3 cent tax increase, and it will not make us the most expensive place in the universe. We also created the Growth Opportunity Workforce Transportation and Housing Growth District, and it's the first time, and it's going to tax primarily commercial property to pay for the infrastructure. It'll make us possible for the first time to build things without going to the general tax rate. If the council passes that, it would be up to a 3/4 cent tax on all property in the county, but a 15-cent tax along the corridors where they're building bus rapid transit. And the tax would only be on commercial property within a half mile of these corridors. We're going to raise the income tax from 3.2 to 3.3, just so you understand the impact. If you're a teacher making $200,000, it would cost you $200. If you're making $100,000, it's going to cost you $100. If you're making $80,000, it's $80. We have other necessary revenue enhancements, recycling and resource management fees. We have water quality protection charge. It goes up. We have responsibilities for clean water. All the stuff we have to do on that gets more expensive. We are raising permitting fees. Our permitting fees are out of line, and permitting is the department that's supposed to be self-financing. So they need higher fees in order to pay the costs of operating the department. Fortunately, all the other places around us are also raising their fees for the same reason. And we're raising the use of money for using public facilities. and a 911 fee increase that lets us pay for our communities, our communications center, call center personnel. And we're going to have that growth district. We have 2 growth districts. The taxes won't come into effect now.
Last Friday, April 17th, County Council President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez offered her own plan.
Families in this county are facing an affordability crisis with high costs overweighting any income increases. Household budgets are stretched thin, and we cannot add to their burden by raising their taxes in this budget, as the county executive proposed. That is why today I am proposing a fundamentally different approach to the fiscal year 2027 budget. Instead of a tax increase and unsustainable spending, I am proposing several changes. First, we must make income taxes progressive and eliminate the proposed 6.3-cent property tax increase. Next, we must slow the growth in government spending. Finally, we must enhance critical social safety net services. My proposed progressive income tax structure will deliver a tax cut to 96% of residents. Under my proposal, a family of 4 earning the area median income will save an estimated $750 on their income tax. Meanwhile, those with high incomes will be asked to pay a little bit more. I am also proposing that we eliminate the county executive's proposed property tax increase. This will require targeted and strategic decisions to slow the growth in spending. This means we will also need to find strategic savings spread proportionally across county agencies. Employees will nevertheless receive at minimum a 2% salary increase. Our school system will also receive a $90 million increase over the last fiscal year. Additionally, the new budget approach will position the county to maintain its long-standing AAA bond rating. With my proposed budget approach, we can finally deliver a progressive income tax. We can protect the most vulnerable with direct services. We can help keep costs down for residents struggling in this economy. Plus, we can deliver wage increases to our dedicated public employees, support our nonprofits, and increase assistance for working families. We can do all of this and more with bold, progressive action now.
The letter accompanying her statement clarified that in her proposal, households making $150,000 or less a year will get a tax cut. The tax rate will remain flat for those making between $150,000 and $300,000 a year. And only those making more than $300,000 would see an income tax increase. Since she wants to balance the difference with spending cuts, she has proposed pulling back on collective bargaining agreements the school district and the county executive have executed with the labor unions. The school district and the teachers union, for example, had agreed to a 3.25% cost of living adjustment. But Fanny Gonzalez is proposing 2%, which has led to protests, especially since the MCA, the teachers union, had recently endorsed Fanny Gonzalez for re-election. County Executive Elrich responded with this further statement. Her proposal to eliminate the homeowner tax credit, known as ITOC, would result in most homeowners paying more property taxes than they would have under my proposal. The ITOC is a flat $692 credit against property taxes for every homeowner who claims their home as their principal residence. Additionally, she proposes to eliminate the working family's income supplement, which is aimed at helping the working poor. While she does propose lowering the income tax for those with an adjusted gross income of less than $50,000, most low-income workers would likely see less money in their pockets under her proposal. End quote. We We have been following the controversy over the MCPS calendar. This school year, MCPS lost a bunch of school days due to snow and then sought to make them up at the end of the year, when students and families would have been checked out. Evelyn Chung, who is a MCPS parent and a former MCCPTA officer, has been critical of the school district's flexible attitude to the number of school days. She joined me to discuss the proposed calendar for the next school year 2026-27.
The last we spoke after that, MCPS got a waiver for 25-26. But essentially, when they got a waiver for the calendar, which allowed them to end 25-26 without meeting the 180-day minimum, the State Board of Ed said, not just MCPS, to all of the school districts, that we didn't want to have the situation again next year for 26-27. So they told the school districts that next year they would expect to see calendars that ended before Juneteenth, which is June 18th. And not only that, but they wanted the last day before June 18th, as well as any makeup days that would be scheduled in. And so as a result, MCPS is now trying to redo its calendar for 26-27, and there are really limited options. So they just issued a new survey asking folks for feedback on those options. The superintendent's recommended selection is to start school earlier in 26. And I think it's about 5 days earlier because we have the weekend. The teachers would also start earlier because they have their pre-service week, and then school would end earlier. So instead of ending on June 17th, I think they end on June 11th, which is a Friday. The problem with that solution, though, is what the superintendent has recommended is that it still doesn't solve the basic issue that we raised this year, which is that the scheduled spring makeup days are not during the spring. They are either before snowfall, which starts in January, February, March in Maryland, or they're after spring assessments. And they're all scheduled, currently still scheduled to land after the last day of school. So people will be planning for school to end on that Friday. And then if we have more than 2 snow days, we'll have to stay over basically the following week. Not only that, currently because of the union contract, the Monday of the following week is a grading reporting day. So, well, everyone who thinks that we're going to end on June 11th, all of a sudden we'll have a 3-day weekend, and then kids are supposed to come back on Tuesday, Wednesday. And I think we all can expect that if that were to happen, people would not come back. So we would just basically lose those instructional days.
What date does he want to start?
The superintendent?
Yes.
So he would start on August 20th for most students. For students who are in like grades, like they're new to a school, they would have this transition day as they do in the current calendar. And that would be on August 19th.
And teachers come back on August 13th?
They would come back on August 12th. And then he's also asking for 2 professional development days that he's going to have to negotiate with the union. And I do have my speculation as to why he's doing that, but I don't know for sure.
What is your speculation?
Well, if you look at the union contract, he doesn't have a lot of options to force the union to do anything in terms of like grading reporting is required for that quarter. And so, if he were to use it as a makeup day, he can't do that without the union agreeing to renegotiate their contract, right? We need a non-instructional day in the spring that can be converted into a makeup day, right? And so you could add a professional learning day, but we don't have any more, right? There's 2 in the contract. And so what I think he might be trying to get to is saying to the union, like, if you don't want to start early, give me get some instructional days elsewhere, right? Let's say in spring break or elsewhere, right? Let me add in a couple more spring makeup days, which will require you to either have a PD day that we can convert or, let me use that grading and reporting day as a makeup day like we did this year. And even the calendar that he's recommended is not what the state told us to do. The state actually said, do not schedule makeup days after the last scheduled day of school. But I looked at it and I really ran the numbers, and I'm not actually sure what else he can do if folks don't want to have makeup days on our religious holidays. or the grading, and then the union says we can't do it on a grading or reporting day. There's really nothing left. There's no other days off that we have in spring.
Can you tell folks where the survey is and where they can take the survey?
You can find it on the MCPS website. We circulated an alert that we've circulated around and should be in everybody's parent square. And basically what that asks folks to do is to vote on, and you can vote as many as you want, which of these options are okay with you, starting earlier, shortening winter or spring break, or converting some of the religious holidays. Interestingly enough, they don't actually talk about converting, because there are some fall religious holidays like Diwali, and they don't suggest that they would consider just converting that into an instructional day, which would save us from having to start earlier, at least by one day. It looks like they're only looking at converting religious holidays into makeup days. So we have suggested that people could write in and suggest that as well. He has not put on the table either eliminating or rescheduling transition day, which is one of the lost days that we had this year. And I think there's, obviously the things that have to be negotiated by the union are not in the survey. But I think those are internally probably, we would wonder why they're not being considered, but they might be. Like, we just don't know what he's thinking internally. So right now we're suggesting people vote for either converting, well, they really have to vote to convert the religious holidays, and if they don't want school to start early, they would have to vote to shorten the winter or spring break.
Evelyn Chung, thank you.
Thank you.
News of the ICE threat to Americans has been taken over by the Iran war. But the agency continues its enforcement practices now off the news pages. Jerry Kickinson is a Silver Spring resident who follows the data ICE releases for his Substack. The data comes from ICE, so has to be taken with some caution, but I asked Kickinson what it reveals.
So, Sunil, I've been looking at the data for specifically Montgomery and Prince George's counties. And I'd like to just look at 3 data points to focus on. One is the quote unquote criminality of the people that ICE has been arresting in those counties. ICE will record whether the person they've arrested has a criminal record or they don't. And a criminal record could be a conviction or just being charged. In these counties, since the start of this administration, approximately 70% of those arrested have had no criminal records whatsoever. And in 2026, last few months, it's actually gone above 80%. The second, starting in August, ICE started to categorize the people they were arresting as either targeted or collateral arrests. Targeted means that ICE was actually looking for that person. So that person had some record, some reason that ICE was looking for them, some civil immigration or maybe criminal immigration violation. Collateral means ICE just happened to come across you. Perhaps you were close to someone they were looking for, maybe in their car, or maybe you were just a Latino-looking person speaking Spanish, or maybe just having a Spanish accent, and you happen to be standing at a 7-Eleven or a Home Depot, and ICE started to question you. In Montgomery and Georges counties, basically it's about 50-50 targeted versus collateral arrests. And the third and final data point is simply a count of how many arrests per week. And looking at that data, it was relatively low and fairly flat from last spring through the middle of summer, but it has begun to pick up in late summer, really picked up in November and early December, and has continued to increase in this year.
Jerry, how contemporaneous are the data?
The data goes up until March 6th of this year. That's the latest data we have.
So it's about 6 weeks behind us.
Yeah.
What is the rate of increase? You said it's been increasing since late summer last year. So do you have a sense of the rate of increase?
Earlier last year, it was somewhere around 10 to 15 arrests per week, but that increased towards the end of summer up to over 30 arrests per week. And in November, December, it then went up again into the 50 area per week. And it is now seems to be heading up towards the 70 per week.
One of the arguments made on the right is the lack of documentation is criminality itself. You're illegal. Is ICE using that standard?
I don't know if we know.
Who is, once ICE releases the data, who is working it? Where are you getting the data?
So this data is released by ICE to a group called the Deportation Data Project over in Berkeley, California. And they're releasing this data because they've been forced to, Sunil. There was a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act lawsuit to compel ICE to release this data. So they are releasing it to the Deportation Data Project. That project puts it up on their website. They process it a little. They translate some kind of obscure codes into a little more understandable English. And then they make that data available to anyone who wants it. And I am just one of them.
Do you want to tell listeners what this website is and what your website is, where they find your stuff?
My website is on Substack. It's jkickenson, JKICKENSON.substack.com. And the Deportation Data Project, they are located at deportationdata.org.
No, the data does not include anything on disposition. What happens to these people?
The arrest data does not. However, there is data that they provide on detention, so the people they have detained. I may be analyzing that data in the future. There is also data available on that site from the Department of Justice, the immigration court system, and they post data about the immigration court cases, including dispositions. And I will be analyzing that data in a future post.
If we were to compare these two suburban counties with, say, DC, with Northern Virginia or Baltimore, how does that data look?
Baltimore City is very similar in the percentage of non-criminal records that they are arresting. It's about the same as in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. There are two differences, though, in the other areas. So ICE is reporting that in Baltimore City, they are targeting more people than they are down in Montgomery and Prince George's County. So it's more 60-40 rather than 50-50. And then finally, the number of arrests per week has been trending upward from the start of this administration pretty much, and is very variable. So there have been some surges in Baltimore City, and then they go away, and then they come back and go away every couple of months, it seems to be, so far at least. And the overall trend has been up almost from the start of the administration.
So cities see surges, suburbs see a steady increase?
That does seem to be the case, at least up to now, right? Of course, who knows what they may change in the future. In DC, very similar about the number of non-criminal record folks that they're picking up. The collateral versus targeted is again similar, but what is different in DC, and I need to give you a very big qualification here, is that according to ICE data, they arrested an awful lot more people over the summer and into early fall. You may recall the big surge and the National Guard coming and all that going on, and the checkpoints on 14th Street, et cetera. So that's all recorded. But and that has, according to ICE, has actually tailed off, and they're arresting very few people anymore in DC. But one, we have to believe that. I don't know if that's true or not. But also, DC is very different, as you know, because it's a federal city. And so there are other federal agencies doing immigration enforcement quite a bit in DC. Most especially Customs and Border Patrol, like they did in Chicago, right, in Minneapolis. So we don't know what Border Patrol, who they're arresting in D.C. We just don't have that data. In Northern Virginia, they are, again, similar about the number of non-criminals that they are arresting, but they are reporting a far higher percentage of the people they're arresting being targeted. And again, we just, you have to believe ICE or not that that's true. So they're saying that over 80% of the people they're arresting, they were looking for. In terms of the numbers of arrests in Northern Virginia, that figure also started quite high very early in administration, really pretty much in February, and increased over the summer into the late summer, but has been falling ever since, at least an overall trend. And I need to give a qualification on the Northern Virginia data. Unlike in Maryland, in Northern Virginia, the data does not record counties. Like I can't see how many arrests happened in Fairfax County versus Arlington County. They just recorded as either Northern Virginia area or Washington area, non-generic. And so I don't know for sure, certainly, what do they consider Northern Virginia? Is it what you and I would? Does it include Prince William and Loudoun County? I just don't know.
Jay Kickinson, thank you. Please come back when you have more.
Thank you, Sunil.
We have been doing debriefs of the Maryland General Assembly session, issue by issue. One of the biggest bills passed by the legislature this session is the Utility Relief Act. Senator Brian Feldman chairs the Education, Environment, and Energy Committee in the state Senate, also known as Triple E. And he joined me this week. We will have his full interview out, but one notable and less reported fact is that the current net metering arrangement enjoyed by those who have installed rooftop solar panels in Maryland is going away. The net metering arrangement meant that Pepco, BG&E, and other Maryland utilities pay for excess power generated by rooftop systems at the same rate at which they sell power to customers. This has been a big benefit and help for solar projects who have been able to avoid investments in battery because they were able to bank their daytime excess generation against their nighttime use. But now Pepco and others will pay for excess generation at a much lower rate than what they sell. While existing solar projects are expected to be covered, it is unclear what will happen when the old rules change, which is expected July 1st, 2027.
It's been a very generous program in terms of what the quote compensation level is. We are operating currently under a 3,000 megawatt statutory cap.
Who said the statutory cap?
The General Assembly.
Okay, all right.
And so under the bill, this same bill, this is also incorporated. We do task the Public Service Commission, number one, to come up with a successor program that will, yes, be less generous. No doubt, again, less of a burden on our ratepayers. But it's been a successful program in terms of incentivizing what we want to incentivize. But we need a new program. The big issue there is the transition between the old program and the new program, and who gets to stay in the old program, and at what point are you going to be in the new program? There was a lot of detail about how that transition will work. Program that will have a new statutory cap of 6,000 megawatts. So again, the goal is that by July 1 of 2027, the old program goes away. But what if it doesn't? Or what if we're not anywhere near the 3,000 megawatt cap? Those projects that are in the queue, again, you need some market signals and predictability.
Sir, are you saying that there is a grandfathering of old projects that will continue for 20 years or whatever it is?
Not 20 years. It's laid out in the bill that if you've made a deposit, if you're a certain way towards, it depends on whether the new program is up and running on July 1st, and it also depends on whether the 3,000 megawatt current cap has been reached, or we still have room under the cap. So the bill lays out a whole series of criteria whether you get to stay. If you're far enough along in developing a project, then you get to keep the old, you're still into what they call NEM 1. And then if the statutory cap is exceeded and the new program is up and running, you're going to be under the less generous new program. But
so let's start with the people that already have equipment installed. Are they covered for 20 years?
if you're already in, this is about, again, new projects under the new program. Most of the discussion was about new energy and new projects and which projects get to take advantage of the old program versus the new.
On the one hand, you have the virtual power plant and the Drive Act consequences.
So that's Drive Act is a separate.
So you're trying to encourage residents to send electrons into the grid.
Correct.
On the other hand, you're saying net metering is going to become less generous. Where do you think that balance is, and are you getting at the right balance?
Well, I don't think we know yet. The Drive Act, by the way, has been a pilot program for a couple of years. We don't have the benefit of 5 or 10 years of experience. Net metering has been very successful, but again, we're moving to a successor program that may be a little less generous. I think time will tell. I think don't forget, we do come in back every session, and I think between what we are doing with the Drive Act, net metering with a new program, I think I can't really answer where the proper balance is, but we'll have data and information to inform us over the next few years to make both programs as efficient as possible. And I think that's the best answer I could give you right now.
We will have the rest of the interview with Senator Feldman soon. Stay tuned. That's all for this episode. Be sure to check out our feature interview series that comes out Friday mornings. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta. Music for this episode comes from Silver Spring rock musician J.D. Brayton, who goes by the stage name Mr. Tree Frog. The two songs we play in this episode are Halo and Troubled Sleep. You can find his music on Bandcamp. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. I hope you'll subscribe and share the podcast as we bring you stories about politics close to you and to your home. See you next time.
You remember, learn.